What's up, fam? This is Matt Sams back again with the Deep Ministry Project, and I wanted to check in real quick to give y'all another addition to what I'm adding to my library that I'm building out. So, one of the ways how I find books is not only topics that I'm interested in, I am very careful with what I buy. Is normally someone that I trust in, let's say another scholar or a teacher, and they will give me a reference to something that they read, or they may say it in passing. I'll be like, okay, let me jot this down, let me put it on my wish list. Another way that I find books is someone like a scholar or a teacher, they reference a book that they taught out of, and I go through that particular book and I read the end notes and the footnotes when I find they've quoted another scholar. And I'll be like, okay, I want to check out that work, where they got their information from. So currently, I just finished my summer semester and I am going into my fall semester, and one of the classes that I'm going to be in is going to be a class or course on angiology. That's going to be one of the aspects of that course. So I had this book in my library for a while. This is Angelomorphic Christology by Charles Geishen. And I said, I'm going to, just kind of refresh myself, just read, and hopefully, with this professor, which I've taken him before, he normally lets us do a book report on a book that we have, long as it's, the same as the subject matter that he's covering. So I said, well, since I'm taking an angiology class, I will be reading of this book I've been having on angelomorphic Christology. Um, and how did I get into that? So this book was spoke about in passing by Anthony Rogers, and I forgot exactly what he was teaching on, but he was defending the deity of Christ, and he talked about a quote between Charles Geachin and kind of rebutting Barth Ehrman. So I said, well, I'm going to pick this book up because he mentioned something very interesting that happened in Galatians when it comes to the angel of the Lord. But that's another topic. Nothing for me to expound, nothing for me to teach here. I'm going to be going through this, writing a book report on it. It falls right in line with a book that kind of introduced me to this whole concept of the angel of the Lord being the pre-incarnate Christ, or in the Old Testament, from Dr. Michael Heiser. So I have several of his books in my library. The Unseen Realm, he did one on angels, he did another one on demons. The Unseen Realm is one that I thoroughly enjoyed, learned a ton from it, but that is not why you're here. So the additions to my library today, what I like to do when I get a book and I'm reading, I like to go through the end notes. And there were a bunch of end notes that I saw from quotations that I liked from other scholars, and I had just circled them at the bottom. You can see if I can find one. Let me see. This one right here is highlighted in pink, circled right there. See if I can find another one. And each and every, probably real difficult to see. Yeah, I got it circled in red. So each and every red circle is something that I put on my wish list, something that I wanted to read later. And a lot of these books that he referenced, either they are out of print or they're hard to find. But there were two of them that I have ordered, and they made it here this week. So let's go ahead and open it up and see what we got. And I'll tell you why I decided to get this particular book. So this first one is by Carey C. Newman. This is Paul's Glory Christology, Tradition and Rhetoric. The reason why I decided to purchase this book, not only was it a reference by Charles Geachin, but he made a point to reference this author, and this was Paul's usage of uh, glory rhetoric referring to Christ in the Old Testament. So here on this particular channel, my goal, my mission is to deepen biblical literacy and heighten Christology. And I was like, wow, this is something that I definitely need to read. And as you can see, both of these books look the exact same as far as the covers. Reason being, this is part of a 13-part series on ancient Christology. I think that's what it is. So in that series, you not only have angelomorphic Christology, you have Paul's glory Christology, you also have Alan Siegel's The Two Powers in Heaven. And I'm trying to think, they also have a book, I want to say it could be by Larry Hurtado. And he's speaking about the Old Testament texts that apply to Christ in the New Testament. I could have the author wrong, but that's another one I wanted to check out. So yeah, Paul's glory Christology. Very excited to dig into this book at some point in time and to see how the language of the Apostle Paul, or the apostles in general, how they took Old Testament concepts and they applied those to Christ, or things that we think are just merely concepts. And they were showing an aspect of God, something that we thought that was inanimate or non-tangible. Glory, for example. Well, glory, according to Carey Newman, we can also see it as personified in Christ. So I am really anxious to begin reading this one, but I have a couple of other books that's in front of this one. So Paul's glory Christology. Now, I said that's one. We also have a second one, and this is going to be the last one. Let's see. So this particular one is by Martin Hengel. This is called The Son of God, The Origin of Christology and the History of Jewish Hellenistic Religion. So I'm going to give y'all the quote that Charles Gieshin gave. I think I'm just going to summarize it, but I thoroughly enjoy this author. I currently have one of his books in my digital library, the one that you cannot see. But he has a book on the crucifixion, and he gets very detailed, gives historical sources, quotes early church fathers. I like the argument that he presents, and it's a very well, it's in a digital library. I don't know how short the book is, but I have thoroughly enjoyed what I've read. It has expanded my knowledge about the crucifixion and the passion of our Lord. But why I decided to get this book. So Charles Gieshin, that was a quote. I can't quite remember the context. No, I do remember the context. So he was dealing with the high Christology of Christ. Some scholars believing that it is much later than the gospel writers, that it came after the church was established, meaning after the writings of Paul, that after the gospels was put down, well, the synoptic gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, then after that you get the higher Christology once you deal with synoptic gospels, I'm sorry, Matthew, Mark, and Luke. And it's not until you get to John's gospel that you really have this high Christology, when he begins to talk about the Logos. So there's been some pushback recently that has been, well, I'm gonna say recent to me, something that I'm learning. There has been pushback by scholars like Chris Evans, Simon Gathercole, who I have two of his books in my library. One of them I opened the last time, and he's also in queue for me to read let me see. Yes, the pre-existent Son, recovering the Christologies of Matthew, Mark, and Luke. And What these scholars are arguing is that uh, the high Christology is not only present in the Gospels, but that, the expectation of the Messiah being all that is related in the scriptures was something that was even pre-existent to the writings. So the quote, and I'm not going to be able to quote it verbatim because I can't remember what page it was exactly on, but I'm going to summarize it. He quotes Martin Hengel as saying that the the gospels, I mean not the gospels, the first 20 years of the church had, more a more developed Christology than the next 7 centuries, meaning that, you know, what you have in the New Testament is not a developing or an evolving Christology. You have all that all that we know about Christ, all that can be known. He is God in Matthew, he is God in Mark, he is God in Luke, he is God in John, he is God through the epistles, he is God in the writings of James, he's God in Jude, so forth and so forth. He is God in the book of Hebrews. They argue that that Jesus is Yahweh. Uh some say the second power, which I concur. The second Yahweh. There are two of them. So I said, I had to pick this up, excited to get into this. Not only do I enjoy reading biblical scholarship that's going to increase my knowledge, sharpen my mind, but I'm also a history buff. I love history books. So this is also, not only I'm getting the best of both worlds, it's dealing with the origin of Christology in the history of Jewish Hellenistic religion. So I am super excited as well to dig into this, but I'm going to finish angelomorphic Christology first. Um and based on what I read, I want to eventually do a class, but if I actually teach on this, it's going to have to be more than one session. There's no way. I've learned that when you're dealing with um, spiritual beings in the Bible, especially angels here in the West, we have a concept that we have to decouple from our traditions, from our art, and try to construct and grasp what the scriptures are truly saying. That way we don't read into the Bible and read into the Jewish or ancient culture something that is not there, not prevalent. So I will have to probably, take my class through some aspects of the unseen realm. I think Dr. Michael Heiser, once again, the late Dr. Michael Heiser, did a great job. I do not agree 100% with everything that he covered. Um, just to give you an example, this is not anything, salvific. I have a certain aspect of the flood or a theory that I grasp and that I take, which was that the flood in Genesis was a global flood. I believe that from a historical perspective, but more so from a biblical perspective. Dr. Michael Heiser, he thought it was a local flood, but it's like, my old professor used to tell me, he used to say, sometimes teaching and reading, you got to learn how to eat sunflower seeds. You got to know how to keep what is good and spit out the shells. So that's one of those things. So I'll probably do a little bit just dealing with the unseen realm, touching that, just kind of building it up. And then I can be able to teach that Jesus Christ was indeed the angel of the Lord in the Old Testament. So this is another addition to books I'm adding to my library. I can't recommend these just yet because I haven't read them, but I just want y'all to know what I'm reading. And, if y'all wanted to be able to find good works, good books. Get in the bibliography of some of the scholars that you like, the scholars that you read their end notes, see whom it is they're quoting, and read those works. Because in their books, they're only giving you a snapshot. But you take that snapshot and you'll be able to develop a clearer picture of whatever it is that you're studying. So this is Matt Sams with a little short video about what else I'm adding to the library. Thank you for your time. Until next time, peace.